Going live. There we go. Going live. I'm like, are you going to go live or what? My connection has been kind of shitty of late. I don't know what's going on with it. I just think Comcast is having, look at this. I'm playing with my hair again. Jesus. Yeah. When you see the picture that I set up before, I was kind of like this. I look a little like Gritty. And if you don't know who Gritty is, let me clue you in. The Philadelphia Flyers, the hockey team out here in Philly, they have a mascot named Gritty, which is basically this orange hell beast with googly eyes. But they really market the hell out of this dude. And Gritty has become like, just a hero for a lot of people because they just do all this crazy shit with him or her or it. It's hard to say, Gritty. So, like one guy said, the only thing that's saving the shit show that's the Philadelphia Flyers this year is Gritty. If it wasn't for that, they would just sort of die in obscurity. So yeah, you have to look up Gritty. Look up some of the video for Gritty. It's pretty hilarious. I love Gritty. I do. It's like he, she, it, they have kind of been adopted as the official symbol of the anti-fascists, which is good. Yeah. That always pisses people off, Gritty. Only in Philadelphia. Only in Philadelphia, That's the sort of shit that happens out here. It was like I made a comment the other day. There was on the Smoking Gun, they had a post about a guy who just went berserk in Florida because he ordered a cheesesteak. And they put it on a sesame seed bun. And if you know anything about cheesesteaks, that's like, as I posted, if this had happened in Philadelphia, there would have been blood spilled. And one of my friends who lives in Philadelphia, she goes, "Oh yeah, there would have been blood." Oh, would there have been blood? They take their cheesesteaks seriously in Philly. Yeah, that's why they call it a Philly cheesesteak. So today, you may notice the title of this post, this title of this video is called Trimillennium. Trimillennium. This is my 3,000th post. Yeah, 3,000 posts in like 10 years. And even though I'm down to just like doing one post a week anymore, I mean, this would have happened back in like September if I'd been posting regularly like I had been. Boy, to get to 3,000 posts, Jesus. I didn't think I had that much to say. You notice I dressed for the occasion. I'm still in my cami that I was sleeping in. I just I don't feel like getting ready. And I do have to run out later today and do shit. There's something I got to do for a job. I swear to God, I hate this. They want me to sign a letter of representation because I'm being presented to an agency of the state, but I actually have to print it out and sign it and then scan it and send it back to them. And I'm like, I don't have a printer. I don't have a scanner. They want a scan of my driver's license too. I don't know why. Probably to prove I'm a Pennsylvania resident or some shit. I don't know. But I was just like, oh my God, I don't own a printer. I don't own a scanner. I used to, and I never used them. That was the thing. I used to have a printer scanner set up. And it got to the point where it was like, I don't use these anymore. That's like, Jesus, come on. Really? So I got to go running around. I got to run over to the Camp Hill library to print out a copy of this shit, which I have, which is going to end up costing me like 50 cents, but still. It's a pain in the ass because I got to drive over to Camp Hill to the library to print out. And then I got to take a picture of it and my license and send it in. And if they don't like the photo quality of that, then I had to go scan both. And that's going to cost me more money. It's like, Jesus, it's the 21st century, people. It really is. It's the 21st century. Can we just not do this? It's like there was a meme going around where it's a pseudo conversation and a person saying, I'm sorry, but first they said, well, I need you to fax this information into me. And the person says, I'm sorry, but I can't fax because of where I live. And the other person goes, where do you live? 21st century, Becky. That's where I live. The 21st century. It's like, seriously. Oh, could you fax this to me? No, I can't. I don't have access to a fax machine. And I'm not going to spend the money to go someplace. I mean, it's like I told the woman last night. They want me to change my resume. And it's like, oh, Christ, I have changed my resume several times based upon recruiters telling me what they think the companies want to see. And in the last year, I've had one interview for IT. One. And I didn't get that job because they asked me, how do you like to work? And I said, when I'm starting out a project or when I'm really getting involved in something, I like to go in my office, close the door, put on some music, and start working either on laying out spreadsheets or working on the whiteboard in my office. And they said I wouldn't be a good fit for their company because of their open environment, which I thought was like, you're just looking for an excuse to torpedo me. It wasn't that you felt my skills were deficient. In fact, they even said they felt I had the proper skill set, but they felt that I wouldn't fit into their culture because their culture and going into your office and closing the door is not what they see as a good culture. And I'm like, fuck it. Seriously? If you have got that much of a hair up your ass that you're going to shit can a qualified candidate simply because you don't like the fact that they're going to close the door to their office sometime and go, don't bother me, I'm working. Knock on the fucking door. If you need something, knock on the fucking door and go, hey, Cass, you got a second? I'll go, yeah. Turn down the music, stop what I'm doing, let's talk. That's all it takes. To me, I even told a recruiter yesterday, I said, I think people are just trying to find excuses to shit can me. Because it's like, I've got 30 years experience and I'm 61 years old. And they're either looking at the fact that if they're only going to pay me $60,000, I'm going to leave eventually, which I will anyway because I'm close to retirement. Or, I'm old and they're only going to get a few years out of me before I decide to retire. I need to win $100 million in the lottery. I really do. I'm so tired of it. I woke up this morning and it's like, oh my God, I got to go out and I got to do this shit. And I really don't want to do it. But I have to. Because, I need it. It's like, rent's due in 3 weeks again. And that one's going to be kind of iffy. I'll probably make it. But not too much beyond that. And it's just like, Jesus, just, can you not? I mean, really, is there like, seriously? I don't get it. Just give me an administrative position. I'll be happy taking phone calls and shit. Just give me $15 an hour, anything, just to get some money coming in. Really. I am. I feel kind of. I woke up this morning and I did have that, man, I'm feeling kind of beat down feeling, which is an indication. I think my depression is like trying to kick in the door again on me. And I don't really want that. But even now, it's like I have that, man, I feel tired feeling. And I'm not really tired. I'm actually pretty well rested. I'm pretty well rested because I did something Thursday night that I haven't done since September. And that's, I took a night off from derby practice. I did. Oh my God. Yeah. 39 consecutive practices since I started with Dutchland. So from the beginning of October until, what was that? January the 10th, I believe. Yeah. January the 9th, I went to practice. And I was dragging ass. I really was. I was tired. And you could tell, even a few people could notice that, I just wasn't as peppy and as vigorous as I had been before. And I even mentioned to a couple of people before we started, I said, man, I'm really not feeling like 100% tonight. I said, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. And it still went fine. I pushed the shit out of myself. I pushed myself. My hitting was better. We did hitting drills. My hitting was better. I even had two of my coaches who coached me as a tot, who even said, you're getting lower. You're getting the hit where you should be getting the hit. You're hitting where you should be hitting. They were complimenting me. Say, yeah, you're getting it. I'm really impressed that, it's really looking good. And we did a 27.5. And I skated 26 and 2/3 laps. I was like, 3 3/4 seconds away. Literally, I was less than 4 seconds away from the finish line when they blew the whistle. And part of that was I had kind of a bobble out on the track where I nearly ran over one of my teammates, and I had to kind of like hold up for a second. And she apologized. She's like, I'm sorry, Cass. And I was like, it's all good. Don't worry about it. And, by the time you kind of like maneuver around and get around and then get back up to speed, there's your 4 seconds. Seriously. You don't think so? There's your 4 seconds. Really. I mean, it's just like, in 4 seconds time, you actually cover about 65 feet. Yeah. At the speeds we're going, in 4 seconds time, you cover about 65 feet. And I literally was like 60 feet away. Really, I really was like 60 feet away from the finish line when the 5 minutes blew. So, yeah, that's it. I'm getting close now. And it's always coming when we did one practice where we did, last thing was the 27.5, and I was dragging ass. It was at the end of a real ass-busting practice. Everybody even said so. A lot of people were just like, oh my God, that was such an ass-busting practice. It was on Sunday. And I still skated over 26 laps. I was like 10 feet beyond the line when they called the number. And a lot of people were like, I don't think I'm going to get 26. I don't know how good I'm going to do. But And then I got 26 and 2/3 this time. And yeah, I'm like right now, I'm in that Netherlands where I'm getting 26 laps and I'm just not closing the deal. It's usually tired. I didn't push it hard enough. Or I got hung up behind somebody, that kills like 3-4 seconds here and there. So I'll get it. We have assessments coming up this week. And that was one of the reasons why when I got done, I was even talking to a couple of the coaches. I de-geared and I got myself in my bag. When I stood up, I went, like that. And my one coach, Erin Gobralis, she looks at me and she goes, "Oh, I know that feeling." I was like, "I think I need to take a night off." And she was like, "Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea." And one of my other coaches, she was like, "Why don't you take the night? You should take the night off." And, and Erin's like, "Yeah, she's always here." You're always here. So, it's not going to hurt if you take a night off. So 39 consecutive practices. And I did. I just like, you know what? I'm not coming in tomorrow night. I'm going to take the night off. I think I need it. And other players, there were a couple of players who were out who saw me and they could tell I was like really tired. And they said, listen to your body. If your body is telling you need to rest, then take a rest. There's no shame. So I did. Thursday night, I stayed home and I watched Solo, which I actually kind of liked. It wasn't that bad. I know a lot of people ragged on it. I guess it's because I'm not as hung up on the whole Star Wars mythology as people who are like, super fans are. So to me, it was kind of an enjoyable flick. I didn't have any problems with it. But yeah, I stayed home, watched that, and actually got a message from Erin, my coach, and she said, "I'm really proud that you decided to take the night off. You do need to listen to your body." And I said, "Yeah, I needed it. I needed to stay home and rest." I felt guilty about it. I actually did. I felt guilty about the fact that I was taking practice off because it's like I don't want to seem like I'm weak, but I later, I told Erin, I said, I realize if I'm dragging ass and, I'm skating at like 85% the whole time, I said, I'm not doing the league or the team any good. And she's like, absolutely. You have to look at it that way. So Sunday, tomorrow, go back into practice. And then next week we start assessments. And that's probably where I'm going to get my tier 3 assessments. So I'm hoping get those things out of the way. I mean, when they say do 27.5, I'm just going to rabbit on somebody. I am going to get them and I'm just going to push my ass as hard as I can to get that 27.5 out of the way because I do not want to have to do it again. I mean, you will have to do it again. But I mean, that one will be for the marbles, and it'll go down on my sheet as I want that first number to be a 4. So yeah, it's just gonna be like pick somebody out and rabbit them. And I've actually been doing that with a couple of vets, and there was one vet who I was one night when we were doing it, I was kind of trailing her for about 10 laps, and I saw her at one point look back over her shoulder when she realized I was like 20 feet behind her, keeping up with her. And then eventually she started pulling away from me because I just started losing steam in my legs. But I'll make certain during assessments this week before I go in, I'll eat a lot of protein and quite a few carbs. Yeah. Yeah. I get my tier 3 stuff out of the way. I mean, I've done a 27.5 and I know I can do it again. And I keep getting close each time. And like I said, I think I actually did one like a week and a half ago. A couple of people even said they thought I skated 27 laps in under 5 minutes. I just lost count. I didn't know where I was at. So I know I can do it again. And then doing one lap in under 13 seconds, that's not a problem. And then the other one is weave through 50 feet of cone, 10 cones over 50 feet in 6 seconds or less. That'll probably take me 2 or 3 tries to do, but I'll get it. So I will get it. Yeah. If I can get tier 3 out of the way this coming week, then the only thing is left after that. I mean, that is what is left in my minimum requirements. And then scrimmage assessment. And then I hear, okay, are you eligible to play? I mean, once I pass, I'm part of the team. It's going to be a case of, do we think you're ready to play? Or do we think, you need a little bit more work? Like I said, I've been in scrimmages before, so I kind of know what to do. So I'm hoping when scrimmage assessment comes up, I don't completely blow it. Really? I actually had a couple of players, they told me, they said, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to get on a team soon. Because you do you do know what you're doing in a way, and you're getting better at a lot of the stuff. So let's hope. Keeping my fingers crossed. But yeah, scrimmage assessment will come by the end of the month. That's where it's really going to come. And hoping. Yeah. Oh my God. One of the good things that happened yesterday, though, was I got contacted and they said, hey, can we have your derby name and your jersey number so I can put it in the forum? But I'm like, yeah, no problem. It was like I was telling a friend yesterday. I've been working to get my derby name. I mean, really, to get into derby for like a year and a half now. And getting your derby name it'll be something I earned. I haven't done that in a long time. I haven't earned anything. So I'm hoping it comes soon. I'm hoping I get to sign it into the book. The Book of the Beast, as I like to call it. Yeah, we call it we started calling it the Book of the Beast when we were tots because of Sabrina. Yeah. So it'd say, hey, where's the Book of the Beast? And then the first day I signed my name into the what we call the Big Girls book, the vet's book. I signed it in red because I'm signing my name in blood because it's the Book of the Beast. And then when I signed my derby name in there, because right now I'm not signing my derby name in. Starting signing my real name. First time I signed my derby name, and I'm going to sign it in red. And that'll be the last time I do that. This is like, yeah, sign it in blood, Book of the Beast. Yeah, here. I did a little bit of writing, but not towards stories. But I decided on doing something. Like I always have said, I tend to think ahead when it comes to working on my novels. And I'm always thinking of future shit. As I've stated many, many times before, I know Annie and Carrie's future fairly intimately. My hair is driving me nuts today. I know their future pretty intimately. And I was going over something that happens to them in the future. And I thought, it's really not going to hurt to show some of this stuff. I mean, you don't want to know about like truly monumentous events in their lives, which could end up messing them up really bad. But at the same time, there's always this interest. And I've had other people, say what's going to happen to them further on down the line. What are they going to do? What's it going to be like? And so I was sitting there going over this stuff, and I was like, you know what? I'll bet there's more than a few people who would like to see this just so they have an idea of what's going to happen in their life later on. So sometime this week, I'm going to say Tuesday, post 3001 is actually going to be a future scene that would come in one of the next novels that would actually show something that happens to Annie and Carrie in their future. Now, I can actually tell you what it's going to be. It's going to be a vision that they're going to have together. So I'm not going to tell you exactly when it's going to happen, but it's a vision that they're going to have together. And we kind of know when those happen. Those usually happen when they go and visit Deanna. But you're going to see that. I'm going to write it up, and I'm going to present it, and I'll publish it as a blog post. It'll be a freebie. There won't be any of this, hey, contribute $3 to my Ko-fi, and you get to see this. Although I'm actually thinking of doing that. One of the things I've talked about is, releasing content like that. And I'm thinking of the possibility of doing like future segments or even like chapters and saying, if you want to read this chapter, it's, give me $1. Just give me $1 and you can read the chapter. It's no big deal. And that's really kind of what I'm looking at. This one will be free. But I'm thinking in the future, if I can get enough people who are interested, I may put this up as part of like a premium Ko-fi and say, hey, I'll write the entire chapter if you want to see it. And maybe just start putting out the book that way. It'd be like every act, give me $3. I don't know. I'm trying to think of how I would actually do that. But you'll get to see that. I'm going to put a scene together. It'll be a future vision of Annie and Carrie's. And I'll tell you right now, when you see what I'm going to write, when you see this, you're going to go, oh my God, Cass, really? Yeah. Yeah, I can tell you in the framework of the novel, when they have this vision, it's going to kind of rock them. And you'll definitely see why. So there you go. That is a promise. I will have that out. I promise you, I will have it out Tuesday morning. It'll be out Tuesday morning. Yeah. So there you go. Post 3001, Tuesday morning. There you go. I'll even put something at the end of this blog post to kind of remind people, hey, look for my post number 3001 Tuesday morning, because it's going to be kind of special. And I think I'll put stuff out like that every so often. There you go. So you can keep up on what's happening with the kids. Keep up with the kids. Keep up with the kids. Yeah, there you go. So, what else has been going on? I mean, it's actually been pretty quiet. Last night, I've actually gotten to the point where I'm kind of running into this wall of shit to watch. And I know a lot of people are like, watch this, watch that, watch that. And it's just like, last night, though, I started watching Homecoming, which is it's a series, a web series put out by Amazon. It's on Amazon Prime, starring Julia Roberts. And she's really, really good in it. And it's produced by Sam Ishmael, who does Mr. Robot, which is one of my favorite shows. I mean, seriously. Mr. Robot, seasons 1 through 3, is on Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, watch it. Seriously. Some people would be turned off by it because it really is a show about hackers. But it goes well beyond that. And it is one of the shows, it's probably one of the only shows that really gets hacking right. It really does. And it's not pounding on a keyboard while getting a blowjob as you're trying to hack the DOD. You know? No, it goes into a lot of detail. But I love Sam. I love Sam's work. And I remember when the credits began coming up, I was looking at it and I was like, well, you look at the font and then you see produced by Anonymous Content. And that's his production company that produces Mr. Robot. And I was like, okay, this is being done by the same people who do Mr. Robot. And then I saw Sam Ishmael's name on it and found out he directs every one of the episodes. And it's a 10-episode series. And each of the episodes is only like 30 minutes long, which is really good because it just pushes through everything rather quickly. I won't even try to describe what's going on because at this point, you don't really know. I'm only 3 episodes into it. And you really don't have an idea of what's happening. And in fact, at the end of the 3rd episode, which I watched last night, Julia Roberts came to this realization of something that was happening to her. And you're kind of like, okay, what the hell is going on? You know, and Sam is really good about doing this kind of work. In fact, one of the things that they do at the very beginning is they do this long tracking shot through a building, which they actually did, they said, with like a 75-foot boom camera. You know, they had a boom that was like 75 foot long that they could use to get this extension of being able to like pull the camera down. It was a boom dolly. And they did a great job of it. I love his work. If you ever watch Mr. Robot season 3, the episode Runtime Error is essentially one of those tracking shot shows where it appears everything is done as a continuous tracking shot. Now, I love tracking shots. And if you don't know what a tracking shot is usually a long period of filming where you are following a person or persons. And it's continuous. It can go on for several minutes. And you see all these things that are happening while the tracking shot is going on, or you're following, you know, basically that's the idea. It allows you to see everything that's going on around certain characters and whatnot. One of the most famous tracking shots is at the beginning of Touch of Evil, where you see somebody doing something to a car, and then you see the car pull out, and you see it as it's going down the road, and all these things are happening. And it's all one long continuous shot that goes on for about 4 minutes. And the movie The Player, if you ever watch that, I think it's like the first 8 minutes of the movie is all one continuous tracking shot. And a lot of it concerns people talking about famous tracking shots through other movies. They go on about that. Another famous tracking shot is if you watch Goodfellas, the Henry Hill entry into the Copacabana, where the camera follows them all through down the stairs and through the kitchen and everything else. That's a long tracking shot. I love that stuff. Runtime Error, Mr. Robot Season 3, is edited together. It's actually like 11 separate shots, but it's edited together in a way that it looks as if it's one continuous tracking shot. And if you know what to look for, you'll know where the breaks are. It's not that hard to figure out if you know what to look for. Otherwise, it does look like a continuous tracking shot. Another one was, I believe, I think it was episode 7 of The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix. It was at the funeral parlor. And it actually is made up of 4 separate shots, each of which is like anywhere from 15 to 17 minutes long. And they put it together at certain breakpoints so that, again, it appears that it's one continuous shot done the entire time. But they did say it's actually 4 separate shots put together. But still, your actors are going on and they're acting for 15 minutes at a time without a break, which for a lot of actors, that's something you don't do. And they said they had to rehearse the hell out of that to get it right. So, but again, I love that sort of shot. So, Homecoming. I would watch it if you get a chance. Julia Roberts is really great. You get to see her looking like a waitress, which looks funny as hell, because she's like the last person in the world you expect to be wearing a pair of Danskos. What? Yeah, it's like, you look like a waitress, Julia. She's good at it. She really is, and she's actually one of the producers of Homecoming. And it actually started out, strangely enough, it started out as a podcast. And I guess it's still running. I don't know for sure. But it started out with a podcast. And both Julia Roberts and Sam Ishmael heard this podcast. In fact, the character that Julia Roberts is playing was played by her friend Catherine Keener in the podcast. And that's how she knew about it, because she would listen to the podcast because she's good friends with Catherine Keener. And then when the option came up that they were going to do it for Amazon, and they said, do you want to do this? And she was like, yeah. And she actually, like I said, her production company is one of the companies that's involved in putting it together. So if you get a chance to watch it, do so. Like I said, Homecoming and Mr. Robot. Mr. Robot's one of my favorite shows. It really is. It's like, I can't wait for, I know season 4 is going to be the last season, and the way they've set it up, you can't really see it going much beyond season 4. I mean, really. But I'm not going to complain because I would rather have a well-defined, full-fledged out story done in 4 or 5 excellent seasons than to have something just drag on for 8, 9, 10 seasons and just sort of like start just rehashing shit. You're putting stuff out there simply because it's become such a money machine. You can't walk away from it. And, frankly, that's one of the criticisms that's been leveled against Supernatural, is that they really should have ended it like a long time ago. But it became such a powerhouse for CW that they can't kill it. And the truth behind that was the original creator of Supernatural never intended it for it to go beyond 5 seasons. he had a definite beginning and end to the show. And it was like at the end of season 5, that was supposed to be it. It was done. And the CW was like, no. And I think it's in like what now? The 14th season. So, and you can say, yeah, well, it's got a great fan base and all this other stuff. But I've also heard arguments come along that says, it's kind of gotten Simpson syndrome, where it's just there because the fan base is there. The fan base will watch it, regardless of what they put on. So I don't know. To be quite honest, I've never seen an episode of Supernatural. I've had a lot of people like, you need to watch this, but it's like, that's 14 seasons, man. We camped out in front of the TV for a month watching this shit. I probably will. There'll probably be some point where I'll sit down and say, okay, let's go through it. Yeah. There's one last thing I want to say, and it's something that's been on my mind for probably about a month now. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to say this correctly, because when I first wanted to talk about it was probably when I should have talked about it. But I didn't. But it seems as if in the last like 6 months or so, there's been this, I guess for want of a better word, I'll call it a dialogue that's been starting up where certain people have kind of been pushing the narrative that trans people, particularly trans women, are more often than not upset with a transition. And this goes back to last summer of 2018, when there was an article published in The Atlantic where they were basically talking about like young trans kids, I'm talking about late teens, who were transitioning. And by that, I mean like fully transitioning. They were getting gender confirmation surgery and that sort of stuff, who were then coming to regret the fact that, okay, well, I now have a vagina and I really hate the fact that I now have a vagina and I wish I'd never done it. Part of the reason for that narrative push was there's been, in the last year or so, a huge pushback on the number of trans kids coming out and how it's affecting the way schools are having to deal with this sort of situation. I've mentioned this before. Trans kids are popping up more and more frequently these days. And it's happening at younger and younger times. It's not unusual now to see kids who are 6 and 7 years old wanting to transition, wanting to live their life the way they feel they should be living it. And more you're starting to see kids who are in their early teens that are going on they're going on drugs to suppress their puberty, and then they're going on hormones like I am to be the person they're supposed to be. So there's kind of a pushback on this, and this is part of the narrative that is starting to pop up among anti-trans groups who are saying, well, deep down inside, a lot, notice the air quotes, a lot of trans people, especially trans women, are eventually regretting their transition. Why? Well, because it's not making them happy. they're still suffering from depression. They're still suffering from dysmorphia. They're still not happy. The people that are putting this narrative out there are not doing it because they're concerned with the wellness and the self-caring of these kids who want to transition, or of any trans person. They're doing it because they don't want to see trans kids. They're doing it because they don't want to see trans people. They think we're mentally ill, and that's part of what they're coming to say. If you thought getting rid of your penis and getting a vagina is going to make you happy, and it doesn't, and it just throws you into a deeper depression, well, there's objectively, see, I'm playing with my hair, forget it. Objectively, what they're saying there is, we've said all along, being transgender is a mental issue, and guess what? We can cure you. Just go to therapy and you won't be trans anymore. I'm sorry, this hair is driving me nuts. And this is a narrative that's been around for quite some time, that being transgender really is a mental illness. Just like they thought being gay was a mental illness at one time, or being a lesbian, or being bisexual, or being asexual is even a mental illness. It's not. It's a real thing. I mean, it has been shown that if you raise a kid in what could be construed as a genderless makeup, you don't push the idea of one gender or another, one gender over the other, that usually by the time the kids are 5 or 6 years old, they know how they identify. Shock. It's almost like that's built into us. It really is. It is. One of the things I used to say, when people would ask me, it was like, well, when did you know you were a girl? And, I'd be like, well, when I was 6 years old, I realized, I really wasn't a boy. I really should have been more like my sister. And they're like, well, how could you know that at that age? I was like, how could you know you were a girl at the age of 6? For cis people, it's never a question. That's the thing. For cis people, it's never a question. It's never a question of, how did you know you were a boy? How did you know you were a girl? Well, I just did. It's the same thing with me. I just did. I realized there was something wrong with how I was being perceived, and how I was being raised, and how I was dressing, and how I was being cared for, and all this other stuff. Just as, a cis boy or a cis girl is like, they accept it. They know that that's right for them. Yeah. Because they do. It's not because someone is telling you. It's because deep down inside that it's right. Now, did I suffer from depression before I transitioned? Oh, yeah. Was the fact that I wasn't living as who I was part of the reason I had depression? Yes. And notice I said it's part of the reason why I had depression. Yeah. There are other factors. You're just not happy with your life. And depression robs you of the ability to make friends and stuff like that, and that weighs on you too. But part of what made me depressed was the fact that I had to live as someone I wasn't. It wasn't something that really weighed on me a lot through the 80s and 90s. It wasn't so much in the 70s. Well, kind of in the 70s, not so much in the 80s, not so much in the 90s. But there was a point in the 90s and leading into the 2000s when, it started to become an issue. Do I still have depression? Yes, everybody knows that. Hell, I talk about it all the time. Am I depressed Because of my transition? No. Transitioning was something I had to do. And it's one of those things that I've done that I don't regret. I never will. The only regret I ever have about transitioning is I didn't do it in the 90s, which is when I really should have. That's my only regret, that I didn't transition in the 90s, right around the time I was turning 40. That's my only regret as far as transitioning is concerned. The rest of it, no. I have absolutely no regrets. I am happy being the person I am. Now, does my depression stem from other things? Yeah, there's a lot of shit I get depressed about. I get depressed about my life, but I get depressed about my life as a woman, not as a trans person who's going, maybe I shouldn't have transitioned. No. I've never gotten to that point. I have never, ever once sat down and like sulked and went, man, I should have never transitioned. I was so much happier the other way. No, I wasn't. I never was happier the other way. Do I get body dysmorphia? Yeah, I do. I've complained to some of my friends. It's like, I don't really like my genitals. You know, I'm not happy that I was born with what I have. And it's quite likely that I will never get them changed. You know, it's quite likely I'll never get a vagina. It's a matter of cost, and it's also a matter of age. I mean, I know there was a woman who was 72 years old who got gender confirmation surgery. And she's like the oldest who's ever gotten it. I probably could get surgery. I mean, I'm in great shape, relatively speaking. I don't know how long it would take me to heal from it. But if I had the money, I probably could get it at my age. But the more I think about it, the more it's like, this isn't really necessary. I mean, I'm not dating anyone anyway, so seriously, you know, I ain't gonna worry about my genitalia. And I don't. And there are times I'll sit there and go, I wish I had a vagina. But I don't get depressed over it. I don't regret transitioning. And I don't get to the point where it's like, I want to cut this off. I could damn sure tell you, if I ever got gender confirmation surgery, I would not be going, oh, I wish I had my penis back. I wouldn't. Now, again, I probably never will get surgery. So I'll probably be, you know, with the genitals I have until the day I die. And that's okay. It really is. What's interesting these days is the number of trans people who know that, one, maybe I can never get surgery because I can never afford it, but two, it's not necessary. You know, I think one of the more interesting things that was put out there by some trans people a while back is the impression that girls' bodies are girls' bodies. The body you're born into. If you're a girl, you're a girl. And I have a woman's body. Now, does it fit the normal standards of what most people would consider a woman's body? Not really. Is it a woman's body? Yeah. Why? Because it's my body and I'm a woman. It really is. And it's really true. My therapist, the last time we met, she told me, you have depression, but it's not related to your transition. In fact, I've never met a person who really was more happy with the person they had become. That was one of the things she once said to me was, I can remember when you first walked into my office and how withdrawn and quiet and almost embarrassed that you were to be there, and how confident and relaxed you seem now. And that was when she said, whatever mental issues you have, whatever issues you have with depression, none of them are related to your transition. Trans people, for the most part, and you're always going to get this 1% of people. That's why I say for the most part, because you always will have a small percentage of people who are transitioning for the wrong reasons. They're not quite certain why they are transitioning. And I've known a couple of people over the last 5 years who have actually detransitioned because the reasons for transitioning, they eventually realized were not legit, I guess you could say. Were not what you would consider the same reasons I had for transitioning. At some point, they realized I'm probably not really transgender, and they detransitioned. But I know a whole bunch of other trans people, a lot of trans people, and I've never heard anyone regret their transition. I've met a few trans kids, and let me tell you, you can tell they are so comfortable being themselves. There's absolutely no self-consciousness about who they are or what they are. They're just them. In fact, there was I met one trans kid, and I didn't even know at the time she was trans. And her parents told me, oh yeah, she transitioned 2 years ago. I was like, are you serious? I said, I had absolutely no idea. And then I realized that's how a lot of people react to me. They have no idea that I'm transgender until I bring it up. And until they brought it up, I had no idea their daughter was transgender. I was like, oh my God, she's just she seems so happy. She seems, like a total girl, and she is, probably still is. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of people out there that still want to do us harm. It's a small percentage, but still a small percentage throughout the United States is still a lot of people. I mean, even 1% of the population is 3.1 million people, which is, if I remember correctly, there's probably as many people out there who want to get rid of trans people as there are trans people themselves. Except that first number is getting smaller, and that second number is getting bigger. I remember reading something where they said originally they felt there was only just short of 2 million trans people in the entire US. And then they came back a year later and said, we've reevaluated the data and we think there's actually twice as many. It's closer to 3.8 to about 4 million trans people throughout the United States. And yes, that is a lot of people. It is a lot of people. There are some people who would say, well, there's 317 million people in the United States. Yes. But 4 million trans people, that's basically the population of the city of Chicago. And there is no one in the U.S. who would say, well, Chicago's not really a city. They only have 4 million people. They're not really a city. No, they would be the ones who would go, yeah, 4 million people. That's a lot of people. It's a city. And then if you say, well, there's like 4 million trans people in the U.S., they'll go, that's not a lot. Oh, so you're basically saying Chicago isn't much in a way. That's the way you have to kind of look at it. If you put all the trans people together in one city, not only would it be the city of Chicago, but it would be a pretty fabulous city too. It would be pretty cool. So yeah, and the number again is going to get bigger. And that's one of the things that these people are fearing, is that second number, the number of trans people in the US, is growing. Why is it growing? Because despite some of the shit that's going on in Washington, what they're trying to do, trying to push us, out of the public eye and back into the closet, people, especially kids, are becoming a hell of a lot more comfortable expressing both their gender identities and their sexualities these days. There was another article that came out toward the end of last year. It was basically, it's like, why is there this explosion of trans kids all of a sudden? And the conclusion was pretty succinct. It's because they feel comfortable coming out now. It's not that they weren't always there. Do you know how many trans people there are who are my age? A lot. And most of us transitioned. Most of the trans people my age have transitioned in the last 20 years. Why? Because you couldn't transition in the 1960s. You couldn't transition in the 1970s. That's why. I mean, I've brought this up before. There is no way in hell I could have come out to my parents in 1963 and said, Mom, Dad, I'm really a girl. I want to be raised as a girl. You can do that for me, right? Wrong. First my parents would have said, stop being stupid. They would have. And then my parents would have really started yelling at me if I had done it. And then if I had started acting like a girl, they probably would have spanked me, punished me somehow. And if I had continued acting that way, my mother, who was a nurse and also was working on her degree in psychology and knew a lot of doctors, probably would have gotten me into therapy. And then at some point, I don't know, the lithium would have come out. Maybe shock treatment. I have no idea. But I wouldn't have been allowed to transition. And I went through a lot of shit as a kid. I mean, there were times. I told a friend of mine one time that I actually went to bed one night, and I was still a practicing Catholic at that time, and I prayed my ass off. Literally. My ass didn't fall off, but I literally prayed as hard as I could, saying I wanted to wake up the next morning and be a girl, and that everyone would know that I was a girl, and everything would be good. And when I woke up the next morning and I wasn't a girl, I was so upset. I laid in bed and cried. I was probably like 8 years old at the time. I was probably 8 years old at the time. And that was actually as I stated, that was one of the things that started getting me working toward the direction of, well, for me, prayer doesn't work because my prayers were never answered. That was the one thing I wanted most of all, and it didn't happen. I had to wait until I was 55 years old, and I did it on my own. Nowadays, unless your parents are total assholes, a lot of kids feel they can come out. And they can do it at a young age. They can do it when they're tweeners. Hell, they can do it at 6. They can do it as later tweens. They can do it as young teens. They're not waiting until they're in their 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s nowadays to transition. They're living their life at 10. And that's something I would have loved to have done. But you couldn't. And that's why you have this explosion of trans kids. That's why you have this explosion of trans people all of a sudden. It's because people aren't afraid to come out anymore. Or at least they're becoming less afraid of coming out and saying, you know what you put down on the birth certificate? It wasn't right. And their parents are also, for the most part, becoming more accepting. It takes some getting used to. Yeah, a lot of parents will admit that. But it's also, if you're really doing this if you really care about your kids, you're going to care about them enough to help them through this. That's just all there is to it, So let's ignore the narrative of trans people regretting ever transitioning because it's a false narrative. The majority, and by that I mean ivory soap level 99.4% of trans individuals who do transition, they don't regret it. If you have issues, they're not related for the most part to your transition. What really hurts your transition the most, and this has been proven, what really causes a lot of the after regret once you transition is not being accepted by other people. That's what really causes most of the problems, is that after you transition, you have assholes on the job who won't talk to you, who keep constantly misgendering you or dead naming you, or just actively do everything they can to be hostile towards you. It happens out in the streets. It happens in public places. I mean, there's people who want to keep us out of bathrooms. There's people who want us to keep from getting housing. There's people who want us to keep us from getting jobs. That's what makes us depressed. We don't regret transitioning. We regret the assholes who don't like the fact that we transitioned. And that's all going to change. That's what is causing this narrative, because these people who are pushing this idea know it's all going to change. That first number is getting smaller and smaller and smaller all the time. That is not going to change. That is not going to go away. And that second number, the number of trans people, is going to get bigger over time. In a way, it is a zero-sum game of sorts. Except you're never going to get rid of trans people. We've been here for millennia. We're going to be here for the rest of humanity, however long that is. So haters, you're going to hate. But you're never going to get rid of us. Eventually, however, we will get rid of you. It will happen. Maybe you won't go away 100%, but you'll be on the other end of that ivory soap. You'll be like 0.6% of the population out there who just can't deal with Can't deal with how magnificent I am. Are you a boy? Are you a girl? I'm an experience. Yeah, just flip that hair, bitch. So that rambling shit, that's kind of the last 20, 30 minutes or so. That's kind of what I wanted to say. And I hope it made sense. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you weren't too bored by it or turned off. I hope it. I really do. So next week, hey, you won't even have to wait till next week, I promise. Tuesday morning, post 3001. Get to see one of Annie and Carrie's. Oh, I'm going to say you're going to be impressed by this vision. Yeah. You're going to start seeing little bits and pieces of their future. Hope you like it. Okay. Take care. Have fun. Enjoy the weekend. See you soon.